The story of Christopher Watts will stay in the public consciousness for a while, and not just because of the Netflix show. The court convicted him of an unimaginably brutal crime against his pregnant wife and 3 daughters. To make the case even more strange, he would then change his story more than once. But we want to talk about what really happened in the Christopher Watts case and go over those different versions of events. If the third version is true, it is hard to comprehend. Before we go into the different stories, we need to cover some important facts. On August 13, 2018, Christopher Watts' wife, Shanann Watts, and their daughters Bella, 4, and Celeste, 3, went missing. Police found the bodies 3 days later. Shanann, who was 15 weeks pregnant, was in a shallow grave at the Anadarko Petroleum Corporation, while the girls' bodies were in oil tanks. Christopher worked at the oil company, which was just 45 minutes from their home. What makes this murder case so interesting for us is the way the story kept changing over time. There are so many versions of events from the same man that we start to question what happened that night. What we know for sure is that Shanann Watts and her 2 young daughters died horrifically that night and ended up in the oil field. What we don't know is the precise order of events or why the story keeps changing. It leaves us questioning just how much of all this he premeditated and how much he improvised. If the story from February 2019 is true, and it was a premeditated crime, it is sadistic. If you're new here and this is your first video, you've picked quite a harrowing story to begin with, so prepare yourself. We cover a lot of fascinating true crime stories on this channel, many with unexplained elements. So, if you like this video, why not also subscribe for easy access to all new content? Now that we have the trigger warnings out of the way, let's start with story number 1. Straight away, we want to clarify that this is not what we believe happened in any way. This is the original story that Christopher Watts told the police to explain his actions. We're just presenting it as part of the changing narrative. The original story goes that Christopher had strangled Shanann after seeing her strangle Celeste on the baby monitor. He also claimed that it appeared she had done the same to Bella because she looked blue in the face. From there, he dumped the bodies in the oil tanks and buried his wife. An immediate problem with this story was that it came after filing a missing persons report. The day after their deaths, he gave a TV interview from the porch saying Shanann and the 2 girls had disappeared and he was begging for them to come home. It wasn't long before he changed his story. Watts soon revised his story to confess that he had killed the children as well. This completely changed the narrative of the case and the perception of Watts. He was no longer a father furious at the horrific acts committed by his wife. He was instead a cold-blooded mass murderer. Police charged Watts with 9 criminal counts in total. This included the 3 murders and the disposal of the bodies, as well as the unlawful termination of a pregnancy. Christopher reached an agreement where he would plead guilty to all 9 counts to avoid the death penalty. This led to a series of consecutive life sentences for each of the 3 deaths. This is where the case takes an incredible turn. By this point, Watts was already in prison for those consecutive sentences and had no reason to confess to anything else. The world knew he had killed his children. However, in February 2019, he gave an interview with investigators and changed his story again. This time, he claimed that the 2 girls were alive when their mother died and that he drove them out to the oil field with her body in the car. He then proceeded to smother Celeste with a blanket in front of her sister and then killed her too. There are a couple of considerations here. There are reports that Watts has found religion since his conviction, so perhaps this new confession is a way of fully absolving himself. What else would he gain from it? Well, there is also the small detail of the Netflix documentary that aired in 2020. There would have been plenty of researchers sniffing around for a good story to make compelling television. A father that kills their wife and kids in a rage at home isn't that uncommon. A father that hatches a horrific plan to take the kids and their dead mother's body to an oil field is unique and newsworthy. This leads to the important final question of whether Christopher Watts planned this third story out in fine detail or not. Reports suggest that it wasn't meant to play out this way, and that if the girls were alive at the oil field, Watts improvised much of the plan along the way. The idea that Shannon Watts' murder was premeditated holds a lot of weight. There was plenty of motive for Christopher to kill her based on circumstances around their relationship, financial situation, and future plans. Christopher was having an affair with a coworker, had been unhappy in the relationship for a long time, and was struggling with debt. The motive for murdering the daughters is different. We can only assume that the easiest way for him to start a new life and be free of them all was to kill them all. This would explain a plan to kill them all at the house and dump the bodies. It doesn't explain a decision to torture the girls by driving them out there with their mother's dead body and killing one in front of the other. There is also no explanation for the decision to conceal the girls' bodies in the tank while Shanann was in a shallow grave. A factor we haven't touched upon much so far is that Shanann was pregnant with a third child Christopher didn't want. Meanwhile, he was in a relationship with another woman and looking to end the marriage. It isn't a massive leap for him to go from wanting the wife and unborn child out of his life to deciding to murder them. There is one piece of evidence that strengthens the idea of wanting to be rid of the burden. That is Christopher's previous attempt to terminate the pregnancy. There's a claim that he attempted to induce a miscarriage by slipping Shanann. He believed that with no baby in the picture, he would be able to start over with his mistress. We should also note here that no blame lies with Christopher's girlfriend at the time. She undoubtedly knew about his family and probably believed he would leave Shanann to be with her. Her absence during the case and lack of any criminal charges suggests she wants no more to do with him and had no awareness of his plans. So much of this murder case is simply incomprehensible when we look at the details of the deaths, the disposal of the bodies, and the final confession. We often look at cases of multiple homicides and wonder what must have been going through the mind of the killer to carry out these acts. What must a father be going through mentally to believe his best option is to kill his wife, drive the body with his kids to an oil field, kill the children, dump their bodies in oil tanks, and bury the wife? We assume the third story is the correct one and was a true confession rather than an attempt to entice documentary makers. The additional stories about previous crimes and attempts to harm the family support that. But we'd love to hear what you think about all of this. Do you believe that Christopher Watts is finally telling the truth and that the children were alive in the oil field? Or do you believe this is an embellishment to create a more fascinating tale for TV? Leave us a comment below. We'd also like to hear from you if you saw that Netflix documentary and what you made of that. Thanks for watching. We know this wasn't an easy one to get through, but it is an important story. Don't forget to give us a like and watch out for our next video.